And welcome. This is Dr. Greg Cason. You're here on Off the Couch with Dr. Greg, where psychology meets everyday life. And I'm here with producer Brian Gomez. Say hi, Brian.
Hey, guys.
And also on the board, it is our one, the only, Tony. Hi, Tony.
Hello.
Good to see you today. So today on Off the Couch, we're going to do This Week in Psychology, the ugly thing that makes younger people look older. Stay tuned, Brian. This will be very helpful. How social media dupes us into wanting plastic surgery. And is your use of porn a preference or a problem? Mm-hmm. And on Psychology in the News, we're going to talk about the happiest and saddest cities in the United States. But first, remember last time we talked about older Americans last time, and we went through all the different things that older people are doing to be younger and to have better health, etc. And Brian, you did something kind of cool. You asked about hearing aids. Do you remember this?
Oh yeah, the hearing aids.
Yeah, and I posited that, yes, we do know hearing aids are helpful, and I gave kind of a little explanation, but I didn't have research. Well, I should have waited 1 week, apparently, because there's new research published in the Frontiers of Aging Neuroscience that tells us just that. And in fact, I wish I had this study last time because it is probably the most exciting of the bunch. The background is, according to the World Health Organization, approximately 60% of people 60 and over have moderate to disabling hearing loss. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Is that you?
I'm sorry. I was kidding.
Sorry.
So yeah,
I'm like, wait, now is it me?
and hearing loss is associated with accelerated cognitive decline, and raising the risk of dementia for older folks who are untreated for hearing loss. And the rate of cognitive decline is thought to increase with increasing severity of hearing loss. So if you've got hearing loss, it might cause some very significant problems. People with mild hearing loss have actually double the risk of dementia than someone with normal hearing. And severe hearing loss has 5 times the risk of dementia.
That's scary. And I know a lot of older gentlemen won't go get like their hearing tested or get hearing aids to help that. So
yeah, and I always thought it was a vanity thing, and I'm like, okay, if you're willing to go, what, but one thing is, this really changed my mind. I mean, I've already known from previous research, this isn't all exactly new, but the way they put this together really made it exciting. 40% of dementia cases are thought to be preventable to begin with. Hearing loss is one of 12 potentially modifiable risk factors. That means you can do something about it. But helping hearing loss is easier to do than helping cardiovascular disease and diabetes, and it's more powerful than even controlling those things. According to this research, hearing loss is one of the very best things you can correct. So they did this study. It was the University of Melbourne, and they looked at cognitive performance of 2 groups. All were over 60 years old, all of which had hearing loss, and those who had hearing aids and those who did not use them. So first they did a baseline. It's how they do it in these studies. They get a whole group of people together. So they got some oldster Americans, and they got them together, and they said, okay, or they weren't Americans. I suppose these were Australian if it was down in Melbourne. But they put them together, and they did a baseline where they basically tested them on their brain. They did these cognitive performances using computerized card games, and then they fitted them all with hearing aids, and then they measured them at 18-month intervals, and then 2 18-month initially, and then 2 18-month intervals. So they had one group that did not use the hearing aids and one group that did. After 3 years, the hearing aid user group showed overall cognitive stability. That means people who used hearing aids kept their brains in gear. Like, things were okay. Nothing much changed. But in comparison, the non-hearing aid user group had declined significantly. Pretty scary.
That's scary, but I'm actually glad you brought that up, because now I want to make sure I take care of my hearing from now on. Like, Dementia's scary, and like it's one of those things that once it starts, it's kind of hard to like slow it down or stop it. So.
That is true. And in fact, kind of underscores these theories why, if we could talk about that, why. Theories why decreased auditory stimulation to the brain could cause changes in the brain structure and function. It's sort of the use it or lose it. And we know this is true for the brain in general. If you get the brain active and engaged, it's going to keep forming new connections. And we have a saying in neuroscience, it's basically neurons that fire together, wire together, and you're always wanting that activity in your brain, learning things new, having new experiences, traveling, etc. Another theory is that people with hearing loss put in a greater cognitive effort and resources into listening and processing. So they're doing all this work because, the brain has to work and you want it to be as efficient as possible. So that's why you want your neurons to wire together, because they make connections. And that's why we can do things we've done before are much easier for us to do in the future. But when you're having hearing loss, you're really having to strain much more, so you're not making those connections as much. You're using more of your brain, so you just get more tired, and it may affect memory as well. And the third is something I talked about last time, which is a reduced environmental stimulation and social participation due to hearing loss. So people who have hearing loss tend to disconnect from their environment. They tend to disconnect from other people around them. And that can cause to loneliness and depression. It can lead to changes in the brain structure and function.
I'm glad you brought this up. And I hope people are listening and getting hearing aids soon.
Listen at a loud volume. Not fun fact, 70% of people who need hearing aids either don't seek audiological care, that's like hearing care, or they don't use their hearing aids. And I used to encounter this a lot. The people who do have hearing aids sometimes don't have them in. They don't have a battery. They don't turn them up. And it's understandable. Hearing aids are actually kind of tough to use because you have to, it manages the sound differently than our natural ear. That's why if you're starting to have hearing loss, it's actually recommended to get hearing aids as soon as that happens, because then your brain is much more flexible and can adjust and allow rewiring to occur when hearing is restored. So actually the earlier the better, as with most things. So good to know, gentlemen. You'll have to keep that in your back pocket for when that day comes.
I'm going to get my hearing tested all the time now.
The next study up, the ugly thing that makes younger people look and feel older. Brian. So a new... Well, I don't know.
Am I getting ugly?
There's a new study that defines that younger adults look and feel older on stressful days, but there is a catch. So hold on. Researchers at North Carolina State University collected data from 107 younger adults. These are people 18 to 36, which you fit in. A detailed daily survey for 8 consecutive days. So they basically gave them a diary. They had them look at the amount of stress they were on every day, how much control they felt in their lives, and how old they felt and looked that day. And we all know those days when we look in the mirror and we go, I look rather old today.
Old and raggedy.
Or maybe it's just me.
I have those too. No.
It happens to everybody.
Not you, Tony.
Not Tony.
Never.
Well, good for you, Tony.
He's I can't relate.
I'm going to have to talk to you about your...
Keep getting younger.
Those beauty secrets. The Benjamin Button syndrome.
Right.
There you go.
Is that the doctor's name?
Yeah, right. That would be funny, though.
We talked about this on previous podcasts that older Americans say that when they feel older than they actually are, they say, my goodness, when they feel older than they actually are, that's associated with a host of negative mental and physical health outcomes. So it's not good for older Americans to look and feel older. Younger people are of interest, as some believe the amount of stress that younger people are currently experiencing is now higher than the stress that previous generations felt. Do you think it is?
Oh, for sure.
How do you know?
Because the fact that rent is so high and we can't afford houses, I think we're all mad right now.
You know, it's
we're all mad.
It's very funny. I don't remember rent ever being reasonable, except when I lived in Houston, Texas.
But I feel like our
then
generation...
it was great.
Oh, I mean, Texas, for sure.
But in LA, which I've been in since, I had to share a single apartment with another guy when I went to UCLA, when I didn't live in the dorms. And then I graduated to a 1-bedroom with 3 people. I thought that was very luxurious. I'm not kidding. And then then in my senior year, I actually had a 2-bedroom with 2 people, but then a friend that came to live there. So we had 3 people there for a long time. How about that?
You just loved your roommates.
I didn't love my roommates. That was always the ultimate luxury, to live alone. I didn't live alone until I was in my until I was 31 or something, 30, 31. Oh. And I had an apartment in Austin, Texas, when I was in my internship. That was the first time I think I lived alone. How about that?
The more you know.
The more you know.
I rest easier.
I loved it.
I loved living alone.
It was kind of cool. Yeah, I have to say. Mm-hmm. So I certainly understand people who want to live alone. It's quite a luxury. So study results. Researchers found that on days when study participants experienced higher stress levels than they normally did, they reported feeling older. And the catch I talked about was that it wasn't just the high stress levels. It was only on days when the young people also reported feeling they had less control over their lives than they normally did. So this is it. Control is relative. Stress is relative, because some people can handle a lot of stress. I've certainly been in that category most of my life, been able to handle many, many balls in the air. But when you feel control, when you're balancing all the balls, it's okay. But I think when you don't feel that control, you feel like the balls are going to drop. What would you say, Brian? Does this seem right?
Yeah. And I think the fact that, like, if it's a stressful day and you don't have control of your day, say, for example, you're working longer hours or you're working 2 jobs, whatever it might be, you're not going to get full rest, And for me, it's the sleep. It's the sleep that I know when I'm not sleeping well. That's how I know. I look in the mirror and I'm like, you're disgusting. No, not like that. But I can definitely tell my bags are showing. I have wrinkles and I'm like, what?
I don't think I got a full night's sleep till I was 35. Okay. So stress is more than usual. When stress is more than usual and control is less than usual, that's when people look and feel older. So, Tony, you must be under a great deal of control or very little stress. Which is it?
I just do a lot of meditation. No, I don't. No, actually, I do handle stress easier. A lot of people tell me I keep everything pretty calm.
Do you have a secret?
That's very nice.
Yeah, I just don't like anybody. No, I'm just kidding.
It might be more temperament related.
Yeah, I've always been that way.
It's just you've always been that way. Yeah, very nice. Very nice.
Must be nice.
It is.
So let's talk about the stress, just so everyone knows, is sometimes unavoidable. Sometimes things we can't handle. I mean, we don't expect, like job issues. You don't always know what's going to happen with your job. Rent and mortgage and home ownership, education, loans and finances, relationship issues, childcare, political atmosphere, environment, everything can be stress. It's basically any change in the environment, any increase in the environment, any increase in load on us can cause stress. And it becomes problematic when the stress becomes chronic. So if you're having chronic job issues, chronic rent and mortgage, chronic loans and finances, chronic childcare, that's when things can really, really take their toll. So this study was published in the Mental Health Science Journal, And it really brings up to me the serenity prayer, because there's such brilliance in that. The serenity prayer, for those of you who don't know, do you know this, Brian, too?
I've heard it before. You've talked about it more than once. The name sounds very familiar.
I'm a big advocate of it. I wrote "good grant me." I guess I didn't want to write God, but apparently God grant me to accept the things I cannot change, to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So it's working on both controlling what you can and accepting what you cannot. And that increases the sense of control, which will help you to deal with stress much better.
We had a model like that in the military too, where it showed us like we can't focus on the things that are out of our hands, which thought it was a little weird, but it makes sense, and I'm kind of glad because it stuck and I'll still remember it,
That is actually good advice. Good advice. So now let's talk about what you've been waiting for this whole time, plastic surgery. By you, I'm not really sure which one of you. Have you ever thought about getting plastic surgery? Have you, Tony?
I have. Yes. There's a few things I wouldn't mind having a little tune-up.
A little tune. How about you, Brian?
Oh, of course, for sure.
And that's a yes for me, too. But
we live in L.A.
We live in L.A. I mean, I've thought about it. I won't ask you if you've actually gotten something, but my wrinkles tell us that perhaps nothing's happened on
There's
this
no
face.
wrinkles there.
My eyebrows are moving. Good.
No, I don't have that. I've never had Botox or filler or anything. Just FYI. Because I don't know. I look at Jodie Foster and I think, she can do it, so can I. She's amazing. Okay, let's talk plastic surgery. Okay, so what made you think about it, by the way, Brian?
About what?
Why did you want to get it?
Oh, for me, it was like you see the comparison of like
where do you see it?
I mean, like on social media, we see it here in town at the gym, like. We see what the beauty standards are, and if like you look at yourself and you look at the beauty standard and it doesn't look the same, you're like, well, maybe if I just hollowed out my cheeks and like had a little lift and just kidding. Yeah.
Are you?
What? Not like I thought it out, but
what cracks me up about plastic surgery is that it goes with trends as well, because you know how all those people were getting fake butts, and now.
Boobs were the thing before.
Oh, yeah. Boobs were the thing before. Yeah. Then it was butts. And I think butts are going out of style, aren't they?
They are. And a lot of people are going back to like a more normal body,
I do like normal bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Attainable.
I'm a weird one that way.
Real.
3.5 billion people use social media, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok as of 2019, and they used it an average of 6.3 hours a day. So people completely fall into this world. And it looks like selfies play a big role, because social media selfies often distort facial features in a way that leads to dissatisfaction, leading to a new syndrome called Snapchat dysphoria.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're learning something new.
So in Snapchat dysphoria, patients seeking cosmetic procedures to attempt to emulate their most perfect Snapchat filtered and edited versions of themselves. I guess in Snapchat, I hate to be so naive. I've certainly been on it, but you have lots of filters on Snapchat. Right?
Yeah, I think on most social platforms.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask you. I was like, wait, the filter situation is a big thing, because a lot of people, I feel like, use it all the time to where they feel only comfortable in front of the camera with the filter on, which, I mean, not to be mean, but I think it's a little weird that you're like, dang, like, I don't know if the self-esteem is that low or something, but like, it just kind of, you shouldn't need a filter to like feel better or prettier,
I don't know. I was thinking of adding a gauze to the lens here, Tony.
Maybe just like a
RuPaul,
RuPaul, or Elizabeth Taylor White Diamonds, something. I gotta put just a big old shroud over me, perhaps. This study was by Boston University School of Medicine and published in the Journal of Clinical and Aesthetic Dermatology. They found that time spent on social media correlates with a person's desire to undergo cosmetic procedures. So the amount of time you spend on social media will taint your view of the world. Who could have predicted that? Completely kidding. I'm being sarcastic. But yeah, if you spend a lot of time on social media, you want to look like all those people who are curating their pictures and making you themselves look as perfect as possible. This also at least partially explains the increase in cosmetic procedures that happened during the COVID-19 pandemic, because a lot of people just spent their entire days on social media looking at other people, and then they call up plastic surgery offices and they're like, okay, I can see you, next Wednesday at noon for a tune-up, for that inevitable tune-up. I did talk to a plastic surgeon, and he said he was so great. I'm like, so did, your business, how was the business during the pandemic? And he said, he goes, oh my God, it was the busiest time we've ever had.
It makes sense because people are also not going to work and not seeing
you
people.
Can recover.
So you can recover.
And you're like, I'm not doing Zoom calls. I'm turning off my camera. My other pet peeve. I've got a zit.
It's like a whole bandage.
They also found that patients who followed and engaged with celebrities and influencers on social media. So if you follow those people who make their whole world social media, that's all they do is sit on social media all day and they sell products and show you their butt. That these people will, if you follow them, you're going to be more influenced to do plastic surgery. And of course, if you follow any plastic surgery accounts, so plastic surgery accounts will also lead you to want more plastic surgery. That one made the most sense to me. I mean, if I follow Macy's department store, I'm going to eventually see an item I want to buy. So I think it's like that.
Yeah.
So significantly influences the cosmetics procedures to be done. But this is also true. Use of photo editing applications such as Facetune, Lightroom. Isn't that one you use?
Yeah, I do use Lightroom.
And Snapseed. Have you ever heard that? Snapseed.
No,
I haven't heard of Snapseed.
I don't know. It sounds a little racy. And Snapseed, to use to edit photos before sharing selfies on social media. So if you use photo editing applications, and those photo editing applications, you're doing that. And then you also have thoughts about undergoing a surgical or non-surgical procedure. So if you're already thinking, oh yeah, I should get surgical procedure. And then you use Facetune, you're like, oh yeah, look how good I look. And then, next thing you're signing up for the surgeon's knife.
And that's the thing that people don't understand when they are following these influencers and these celebrities, that the photos are edited. They don't even look like that in real person, No, you don't remember this. Do you know the movie Halloween? Yes.
Yeah. So Jamie Lee Curtis, who is an actress, do you know who she is? Oh, you do. Yeah. So she was in the very first Halloween movie. She's the daughter of Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis, I believe, two huge stars. And then she became a star in her own right. And she did something that was really miraculous. It was the first time it had ever been done, because every time her photos are taken, they're edited and gauzed and whatever. So she had them take a raw photo and print it. I think it was on the cover of a magazine or something. And it was the wildest thing. It made every news station, every channel. It was the talk everywhere, because here this actress who was known for her looks and her body was presenting herself in just the most unattractive light, in the least edited way.
That's amazing. That's cool.
Actually,
that's really cool and especially in a world that it's all edited, that it's all, made to be perfect.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And even then, she just looks normal.
Well, she looked normal. That's right. But, a celebrity looking normal. Look at all how many people took months of Ozempic before, the Oscars? How many people got, nipped, tucked, Botox, fillered. They had hair extensions. They were wearing a corset. I'm sure there was all kinds of things going on at the Oscars. Those people have to make a living on their looks. So looking great is part of the appeal. But, sometimes like I think Emma Thompson and her dress broke and she kept talking about it. Like no one would have noticed, but it was the most human moment. You were just like, oh yeah, and she's afraid that her dress is falling apart and everyone's looking at it. This was just a human moment. We all have those.
Yeah.
So
we need more of those, I think.
So it's okay to get cosmetic procedures, but social media and media in general has a way of making false promises and inflating hopes to sell expensive services. So buyer beware. Okay, who watches porn here?
What?
Oh, come on.
I feel like everybody does.
What? Never? So one of my favorite musicals is Avenue Q, and they have a whole song that the internet is for porn.
It's funny. I thought you were going to say one of my favorite porns.
I won't be talking about those. But porn comes in many forms, and right now it's free. Like when we were kids, getting a hold of porn was very, very difficult. Somebody had to bring it, like their dad had to subscribe to a magazine that one of the kids brought to school. This was basically how it was done in the old days.
Or on pay-per-view only,
There was no that was before pay-per-view. That is definitely Stone Age, yeah. So, most of it now is free online. So videos and movies are now the most common forms. Images and photographs, which is, I think, what we grew up with, is, was from magazines and things. Erotic stories and literature. Live cam shows now, where you can pay someone to, put on a show for you. Chat rooms and forums. Those are for the people who want to talk about it. And animated content. So if you really want the exotic experience. And now there's an explosion of video or virtual reality and interactive content, which just is completely trippy. Yeah. The whole Apple, the
Oculus.
Those Ocular, that's the Oculus. Yeah. That's, I think, Facebook or something. Yeah. Who knows? All those different virtual reality machines are going to cause, yes. Yeah. So, the study is a major international study done by the University of Montreal and published in the journal Addiction. They studied 82,000 people in 42 countries. This was a big study. This research really stands out because they didn't just look at men, because men are always the one we look at when they're doing porn. They looked at also women and people that don't fit traditional gender roles. They said, let's just survey everybody. Let's just see what porn is around the world. It's very different now than it used to be, because now almost everyone has access to cell phones. So the study is largely based on surveys and questionnaires. So you already have a little bit of a problem here in self-report. And self-report studies are much harder to do. Like if they were actually put a drop in their phone and that they were actually studying their, every time they logged into a porn site or looked at a porn picture, that would be much, much more accurate. But here it's just surveys and questionnaires or self-report. But in general, it would be a little bit overly invasive to put some kind of monitoring device for porn. So I'm glad they didn't do that. They also looked at something called problematic porn use. That's where people are unable to control their use of pornography. And that is measured by things like negative impacts on their lives, losing jobs, losing relationships, and feeling significant distress. But fear not, feeling guilty about looking at porn does not necessarily mean that you're a problematic user. So if you grew up Catholic like myself, and you might have, extra guilt to go around, you're constantly looking for things to attach it to, then you probably don't necessarily have problematic porn use. It's only when it starts to impact and affect your life. Yep.
Is that an issue for you?
Not that I've noticed. So as many as 94% of adults in different countries use porn. So they surveyed, there were 79 co-authors. So if you look at studies, there might be 3, 5, maybe 10 if it's a lot. But 79 co-authors on a study is kind of mind-boggling. I don't know how they put this together. They looked at members of the International Sex Survey Consortium in the United States. They had co-authors from China, Europe, and other parts of the globe. In North America, Europe, and Australia, by the way, 70 to 90% of adults have used pornography at some point in their lives. So it doesn't mean they're necessarily using it right now, but they've dabbled. But only 3% may have a real problem with pornography. How about that? It's really a small group. And that fits with so many other things, that 3% number. We often see when problems emerge, they're often in the 1% to 3% range. Significant exceptions can be things like depression, anxiety, and these sort of big, sort of marquee problems. But this one is down around 3%. Men have more issues than women, not a surprise. But problematic porn use, I love that. Problematic porn use. I'm going to have to say that over and over. Problematic porn preferences. No, that would be even better. Problematic porn use did not differ dramatically between straight, gay, bisexual, or any other sexual orientation. So it was about the same, whether you're straight, gay, in between, whatever it is, your sexual orientation. It looks like problematic porn use is not different group to group. And this actually comes into play for a particular helpful reason. Few problematic porn users also ever seek help for their problem. So most problematic porn users keep it to themselves.
I wonder if they know it's a problem.
I'm guessing they might, because it might have caused a problem with their job, with their relationships, that they feel significant distress, like they can't stop it.
Dang.
So this is going beyond just regular
Tony's
use.
like, wait.
This is a little bit different because I deal with couples, and in couples, sometimes one partner will discover the other partner looking at porn, and there'll be a couple relationship. And they'll say, oh, you're addicted to porn, you're looking at porn, or you're not attracted to me. I think neither one might be true. And you might be true. It might be that they're not attracted to their partner, and it might be true but we can't just say just because they're looking at porn, those things are true. So you really, really need to look a little bit beyond that. So sometimes people jump to these kind of big explanations when they're not necessarily true. So it's good to know it's quite universal. And I think in Avenue Q, they joke about this, like every single male character in the play. Like this one woman was asking, oh, you do the internet. You don't look at porn. And every single man was like, yeah, no, I do. They do it very funny. That's a great play. Younger people, particularly those who have grown up with easy internet access, generally consume more online porn than older generations. So I guess.
Why are you looking at me?
Well, just curious. So what are the reasons people use porn? Most people use for sexual gratification. They also may use for curiosity, like, what's that? What's reverse cowboy? I certainly was curious.
Tony?
Yeah, you never know. Some might use it for educational purposes. Yes.
Also Tony.
Who knows? Some might use it, and I think this is a common reason, especially people who might live in more remote areas, to explore their sexuality, including fetishes and preferences that might not be condoned by the people around them, per se, perhaps. But I think also there's even to go beyond that, besides exploring their sexuality, I think some, and I've certainly encountered these people, that use it for connection and community. To actually connect with other people who are into the same things they are. These might be people who are trans, people who are furries, people who want to express a sexual desire, but they can't do it, in perhaps they have to do it in a more protected environment. So, not that trans is a sexual fetish. But people who are trans then might want to connect with other people who appreciate them and have community.
That makes sense. You know, it's like just another avenue for them to connect, like you said.
Yeah. And even with other people who are, or maybe even in themselves, let's say they haven't come out, but they're living life as one gender, but really identify as a different gender. And then they can kind of maybe go and they can have an avatar or like an identity that they can express online. So there are many uses for porn, perhaps, that can be actually rather healthy.
Did not know that.
So fun fact, sexual minority individuals may watch more porn and more frequently than their heterosexual peers. How about that, guys? So reasons, what do we think? It may be more challenging for them to find romantic or sexual partners. I don't think it's a problem in the big cities, but certainly in, again, more remote areas, that's going to be more problematic. Sexual minority individuals do not report more porn use than their heterosexual peers. So although they might use it more frequently, they don't report, not more porn use, more problematic porn use. I somehow left out that word. Problematic porn use than their heterosexual peers. So they don't have the problem. They just use it. How about that? So, okay. So let's talk psychology in the news. I wanted to talk about this study that was done by Wallet Hub. And when I first heard about it, I was like, Wallet Hub? That isn't a study. And then I looked into it, and they actually did apply some pretty nice scientific principles. I think, although it's a popular website, there was kind of an interesting, compelling little put together they had here. So let's talk about it. They looked at the happiest cities in America. Wallet Hub drew upon various findings of positive psychology. For those of you who don't know, so positive psychology is this branch of psychology that looks at what some people are calling wellness. It's really quality of life, healthy and fulfilling life, strengths, assets. I mean, it's building strengths, achieving goals, having positive attributes, positive relationships. So it's really building those things. I certainly incorporate those things as I practice cognitive psychology, which is positive psychology really is a branch off, but in many ways they like to think of themselves as their own thing altogether. Then they evaluated the 180 largest cities in the United States, and they looked at 29 key components. And we don't have time to go into every component, but they really went into it with these studies. And these were people from all professors from different universities. And I'm sorry I don't have those right in front of me. But the key aspects evaluated were 1, emotional and physical well-being, 2, income and employment, so economic data, and 3, community and environment. So the emotional or physical well-being, they looked at things like life satisfaction, depression rates and suicide, and average leisure time spent during the day. Also, income and employment. They looked at households above $75,000. Let's talk about the magic $75,000 number. We found in happiness research that people who make below $75,000, that an increase in income will increase their happiness. But above $75,000, it doesn't seem to have an effect. Just fun fact, this used to be about 10 years ago, used to be 65,000. So it's gone up. And, the one issue I have with the $75,000 number is that may not be the same for cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York. And certainly the major cities where cost of living is higher. So we can take that a little bit with a grain of salt. Also looking at job satisfaction and job security. When we look at community and environment, we look at things like hate crimes, weather, areas of parkland. We want trees, we want beaches, water features, all those things. And when we look at everything together, the happiest city in America is, drumroll please, Fremont, California, with the highest share of households with an income above $75,000 at 80% of people that live in Fremont. It's kind of a rich city. 80% of people make $75,000 or more. They have a high rate of life satisfaction, low depression rate, long lifespan on average, the lowest separation and divorce rate in the country at only 8.9%. You know how we hear about the rankings that 8.9% of people, 50% of people end in divorce? Well, it is low in Fremont. So if you want a good relationship, I guess that's the place to go. Lowest share of adults who report having 14 or more mental unhealthy days in the past month. So they also did not report as many mentally unhealthy days as other cities in the United States, showing that they really take care of themselves. So let's talk about this list that's up here. Fremont's number 1. Let's look at the next few down. The Overland Park, Kansas, number 2, and there are many reasons for that. Kansas, the only one on the list that's Kansas. But then we have a lot of other California cities. San Jose, California. San Jose and Fremont are both, in many ways, I think we consider them Bay Area, Silicon Valley, Fremont being a little bit north, San Jose being a little bit south. There's also Madison, Wisconsin, College Town, gorgeous. Have you guys been by any chance? Oh, wonderful. I mean, just magic land. It's a college town. Anything that's a college town is just amazing. Irvine, California. This is very close to where I grew up, and we always joked that Irvine was Stepford. We thought that was where the Stepford Wives movie was based. Honolulu, Hawaii, which is a nod to Hawaii. San Francisco, California, Pearl City, Hawaii, which is a city right off Pearl Harbor, which is very close to Honolulu. Fun fact, I'm originally from Hawaii. I grew up here. Columbia, Maryland as well, and Scottsdale, Arizona, that hot place. But that's Scottsdale isn't the worst. You go to Scottsdale, don't you, Brian?
I've gone a few times.
You've gone up quite a few times. But it's fun. They have a TGI Fridays and I can't remember what. I remember thinking it was a nice place. Okay, so notable rankings. The town where I grew up, Huntington Beach, number 12 in the United States. Number 12. And it's kind of surprising because Huntington Beach is currently experiencing a little shift to the right. They just passed something that gay flag cannot fly there, even though they traditionally had it. Now they've had a referendum to ban it. Yeah, I know.
Scary.
I know. And they're looking at trying to get books out of the library, and it's the whole thing. It's just very disturbing. But 14 of the top 34 cities in the happiness ranking were, in fact, in California. California is the happy state in many ways, but we aren't the happiest. We just have probably the most happy cities. Los Angeles was way down, number 64.
Oh wow!
I mean, halfway down, but it's a city. I mean, we got our complexity. Austin, which is probably one of my favorite places I've lived, if not my favorite. I mean, in so many ways, I thought it was magic. Austin, Texas, number 66. Okay. I was almost a little surprised. I thought, well, my goodness. But, Austin's got its share of things as well. Chicago, Illinois, 83. Everyone I know lives in Chicago loves it. So again, but these are cities. They got complexity. New York, another place I lived, which I loved with all my heart, was number 86. And Houston, Texas, an understandable 134.
Too humid.
It is the most humid place.
Yes.
I don't even know how to explain it. I do know that the French soldiers who were stationed there during the when they were first put there before it was, I think, even Texas, were given hazard pay when they were stationed in Houston. Yeah. The least happy cities, I'm going to run through this a little bit. Least happy cities, next slide, the Akron, Ohio, Mobile, Alabama, Jackson City, Missouri, Jackson, Mississippi. I'm sorry. Oh, my goodness. Toledo, Ohio, Huntington, West Virginia, Shreveport, Louisiana, Birmingham, Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, Cleveland, Ohio, and the unhappiest city of all, Detroit, Michigan.
Have you been to any of those cities?
Yes, I've been to Detroit, Cleveland. I've certainly been to Alabama, but I don't know what city. I've been to Toledo, Yeah, I've been all up in there. And Akron. I've been all over Ohio. I actually kind of liked Ohio, but it definitely had some struggles. Huntington, West Virginia. I would like to go to West Virginia because it's some of the most beautiful mountains and areas I've ever seen, but it is a struggling state. It is a struggling state. So let's talk about depression rate. Can you put that up? The lowest was Pearl City, Hawaii, Honolulu, Hawaii. This doesn't surprise me. I mean, when you're in Hawaii, you just feel happy. Fremont, California was number 3. San Jose, California, number 4. Irvine, California. You know, when you have Stepford wives, I think you're not going to feel depressed. I mean, you may not feel anything at all, but you don't feel depressed. So those are the 5 lowest depression rates, but the highest were Knoxville, Tennessee, Burlington, Vermont, Spokane, Washington, Huntington, West Virginia, and Lewiston, Maine. So what do we know about those? In the best city versus the worst city, there's a 3 times difference. So Pearl City is 3 times lower in depression than Lewiston, Maine. What do we say about? What do you guys think?
You think it's our nature and environment on?
Yes, I do think that. I think these are places that are affected by weather and cold and cloud.
In Washington, of course, that's a lot of weather.
Yeah. Now, Huntington, West Virginia, I mean, there's a high opioid usage. There is a high drug population. I looked at this. The stats for that was not. I didn't want to go into it, but you know, there's some ailments that perhaps they're dealing with. Just to go down, suicide rate, you know, just to keep it really perky here, the lowest was actually Newark, New Jersey. Oh my God. But you fly into Newark to go to New York. Yeah, Newark, New Jersey. I thought that was interesting. Jersey City, New Jersey, a place I lived for about a month. New York, which I definitely lived in. So, you know, Columbia, Maryland, and Yonkers, New York. What do we know about New Jersey and New York? You know?
The only thing about New York I could think of is most people, even though it's so high in cost, but people, like you said, you love New York.
Is like a drug.
It's just like
there's
being
like a life to it.
Yeah, it's like just being there. Yeah, so I don't know about the New Jersey side, but honestly, I've never been to those cities, so I couldn't tell you.
New Jersey actually has some gorgeous areas, but it's not known for them. How about that? You know, but it has some very beautiful areas. Well, in Jersey City is like practically. In Jersey City I swear it's just like being in New York. It's like a suburb. It's almost like Brooklyn. I mean, you're right across. Let's look at the highest suicide rates. Colorado Springs, Colorado, Billings, Montana, Juneau, Alaska, Rapid City, South Dakota, and Casper, Wyoming. The only differences here, the best city, Newark, New Jersey, has an 8 times lower suicide rate than Casper, Wyoming, which I've been in. Thank you. I've been in Casper. I used to have a friend who lived there, and I actually had a nice time there. But the only thing that might be different is perhaps the laws about firearms. What?
And isolation.
And isolation, perhaps. Although I felt, you know.
There's a lot of people that like that.
That's true. That's true.
There's nothing really there.
But for young people that go through depression, maybe that isolation could make you feel.
Isolation. There you go. And Juneau, Alaska, I'd have to say is one of the coolest cities I've been in, you know. So, you know, there's back and forth. And going to separation and divorce rate, really quickly, I thought this was kind of cool because this is definitely mental health related. When we're happy in our relationship, we're happy. When we're sad in our relationship, we're sad. The lowest is Fremont, California. Again, Pearl City, Hawaii. Irvine, California. Again, Stepford doesn't go wrong. San Jose, California. And Gilbert, Arizona. I had a friend who lived there with her husband and they got divorced. But
sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
But
thanks for ruining that statistic.
No, I mean, it does happen. But they were the lowest. They're 5 times lower than the highest city, which is Detroit, Michigan. Detroit seems like a very busy place. Highest, let's go down. The highest 5 cities is Wilmington, Delaware, Rochester, New York. So going upstate, Birmingham, Alabama, Cleveland, Ohio, and Detroit, Michigan. So there's a 5 times difference between the best and worst city with separation divorce rate. So where you live plays a huge role. And just to kind of go, I wanted it because I know it's a very natural question. I certainly had this question because the minute I'm like, well, the best states out there. What are the best cities? What are the best states? Can we put up the happiest states? Utah. Utah.
That's shocking.
This didn't surprise me because although they don't have a lot of big cities in Utah, they have Salt Lake and all that. But in general, I think the community, their Mormon community, is very cohesive and people might be rather happy. Hawaii, not a surprise. Number 2, happiest state. The Maryland, Minnesota, New Jersey, Connecticut, California, Florida, Idaho, Nebraska. So California's in there. That wasn't a surprise. But we see a lot of these states that really have strong social safety nets, a lot of emotional well-being, good weather, good, nature, all these things. So kind of cool. Least happy states: Oklahoma, New Mexico, Alaska, Minnesota, Mississippi. Oh my goodness, all the M ones. Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky, Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisiana, and the lowest, of course, is West Virginia, which we talked about, which is 50th in emotional and physical well-being, 50th in work environment, but only 33rd in community and environment, because they do have they live in a beautiful place. So that is good. So what do we think about this, you guys? There's some good places to live.
Go ahead.
No, there's places I would want to check out now. Now I'm curious. We're like, I want to see if I'd be happy there.
I guess growing up in Kansas and being in a small country town, that's why I say isolation or just lack of things to do, or sometimes even support if you are in a different category of somebody. There's a lot of alcohol, a lot of boredom, a lot of cheating, a lot of drugs, meth. So, that's not when I was meth was not there when I was growing up. It was more pot. But, so yeah, I think there's just a lot of these states that have probably less income than most of the other states that they don't have a lot to look forward to.
Yeah. And I think that's correct. And I think we need to really work on helping. Yeah. Helping those who are less happy and, to find ways to do that. And I hope we continue to address these things, to continue to address people's happiness. By the way, the United States was only 15th in the World Happiness Index. There are many happier countries. And of course, I think the happiest is always either Denmark or Iceland. It's always in Scandinavia. So it's, those, we see a very, very high happiness in that region of the world. But that's probably because of their strong social safety net and strong cohesion and also beautiful places. So, well, that concludes it today, folks. This is Dr. Greg, Brian, and Tony bidding you farewell. Until next time, be present, be flexible, and be kind.